You know, it is not being dramatic to call bowel cancer a silent killer. Many victims will not suffer any symptoms, and for nearly half of those diagnosed, the disease will be fatal, which is why raising the profile of this condition is so very important. We're going to meet a cancer survivor in just a few moments' time, but joining me for this is unusual, a guided tour of the colon is Professor Graham Newstead, who's the chairman of the how do you say that, Professor?
Colorectal Foundation.
Colorectal Foundation.
Yeah,
Professor,
tough word.
It is indeed. Please, what is this? Look at it, a blow-up colon.
It's a catchy thing to get people to recognise the importance of bowel cancer in our community. And it's a disease that they don't have to have. We know that virtually all the cancers come from polyps, and if we can find the polyps before they turn to cancer, then we can prevent the disease. A little unlike breast and prostate, which are also both very important, whereas those are early cancers, hopefully, if they're early. But what we're trying to do is to bring to people's attention the fact that they don't have to have this disease.
No, nobody has to have this if they get checked. Come for a walk. This will be a first for you, I promise. Walking through the colon. So this is...
It's one end or the other. You can take your choice.
Well, okay, probably enough information there, Professor.
Okay.
So our colon, how many feet in our gut?
The colon is about 1.5 metres long, and this one's about many times that. And what we're doing here is looking at some of the diseases. This is meant to represent colitis, which is chronic inflammation of the bowel.
And why does that happen, sorry?
These are little polyps or polyp-like growths that have occurred due to recurrent inflammation. And they can look like regular polyps, which we're going to see in a minute.
Okay.
And this is inflammation due to another form of inflammatory bowel disease.
These dark marks
they're
here.
little ulcers meant to represent ulcers. But now we're getting to the area that's important, and these are the true polyps. And these are little mushroom or grape-like growths that occur on the wall of the bowel, and they are very common in the community. The vast majority are harmless, but pretty much all the cancers come from these polyps.
So this is how it starts.
And if we can find these and burn them away, we won't get to what we're coming to next, which are the cancers.
Okay, this again, as it says, advanced colon cancer.
Arising from something which is a polyp which has gone wrong.
Again,
one of these which has got larger, and this is meant to represent the significant cancer, which by now may have started to grow through the wall of our colon, whereas the polyps are superficial. And therefore, if we can burn these away with our telescope and get rid of them, we can prevent them getting to this, and thus preventing the time when the cells have changed and start to spread through the wall of the bowel.
Okay, how long growth is this, for instance, before it gets to that?
It probably takes between 5 and 15 years, let's say an average of 5 years, as have 10 years, for a polyp to become a cancer. So if people are considering having their bowel checked at age 50, then they are safe to run between 5 and 10 years before they need to have a further check. Now, if that check is with a colonoscope, then that's satisfactory.
And that's the one nobody likes, because that's where they put you to sleep and put a camera right through your bowel.
You have to take the bowel preparation and go through the bowel, but it finds the polyps and removes them.
So you don't get cancer.
So you will not get cancer. The alternative is to have a cheaper and easier technique, which is fecal occult blood testing, that is testing for blood in the bowel motion. And although it is cheaper and easier, it's not quite as perfect at finding the polyps and even some early cancers. But provided we find the cancers early, that's 90% will be cured.
Okay, let's, as I mentioned, a cancer survivor is going to join us, Philip Mendoza-Jones. Philip, come in here. Oh, we'll go over to you, Philip.
Oh, okay.
There you go. I tell you, that's pretty impressive. As I look in there, when you realise, Philip, this is what was going on inside your gut.
That's exactly what was inside.
How did you find out?
He found it.
Yeah?
No, I went and had went to the GP just for a test because I was losing energy, and I was perfectly fit. Went and had a blood test, and they found that I was anemic. I was losing blood, so straight in to see Graham, and he said, "Right, we have to do test for it."
Other than feeling a bit lethargic, a bit tired, any other symptoms?
I had none. I had none. It was
That's
just
normal,
one of those.
isn't it? You
Yes.
really
Yeah.
very rarely get symptoms.
Especially in the early stages. By the time you get the symptoms that we used to be taught were the stages of the symptoms of cancer, we had advanced cancer, and by then it may be too late. And on the outside of the colon is the growth growing through, and that's what we want to avoid.
So what happened then?
Well, then after the test, Graham said, we found it. And he said, and finding it was the big thing, because if he hadn't have found it, it would have been somewhere else, which would have been pretty terrible. So then it was a case of the operation. Well, I needed 24 hours of blood transfusions before they could operate. And then after the operation, that was it.
So the operation, and I'm going to make this really simple. Basically, you've got a cancer like this
Yep.
sitting in there. You slice someone open.
Yes.
Right down there.
And these days
That's
we
it.
can even do it with a laparoscopic technique.
Really?
Doing it with keyhole surgery, yes.
Well, once you take out their entire guts and put it on the table next to them.
No.
In the
we
old
take
days?
out. No, you still do the same operation, except you either do it open or using other tools.
So then you chop out the bad bit, sew the
Draw
bowel
it up.
back together, and everybody's happy.
And the vast majority of patients can have this done without a permanent colostomy bag, and it's only in the very lowest rectal cancers, very near the anus, that we need to remove the anus permanently. Very rarely necessary
But the
these
key
days.
is no symptoms. Anybody over 50. Hereditary is a big issue,
Yes.
but
And should be younger, and therefore around the age of 40, unless it's an extremely young relative that had cancer, 40 with a family history and 50 for average risk.
But you cut off that polyp we saw back there, it doesn't get to there, and you never have cancer. Have it checked regularly.
Exactly.
That's the key. It is it is the most preventable cancer, full stop.
It is.
And it is important to see issues like that and remember people have to have this done. You save yourself a lot of aggro, hey?
Certainly would have. I would have.
It's a tough one. It's a very tough one. Well, Professor, thank you very much.
Thank
and
you, Kerri-Anne.
Philip, I guess a lot of you, have your mates learned by your condition?
They don't. It's very, very hard to convince friends to go and do it. I have a friend in hospital now who didn't have a check 2
Well,
years
that's
ago.
it. You must convince people to try and do it. But I hope we've done our little bit today, and thank you both for joining us.
Thank you very much,
pleasure.
Kerrie-Anne.
Okay,
Greatly
we've got more
appreciated.
coming up. Here's some prizes that we give away on the wheel every day.